Welcome back to another episode of the Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators with me, Dr. Asia, and we have another fire guest. Folks, I feel like I say this every time that we have fire guests, but that just means that my Black folks out here are doing great things, right? So excited today. We have another guest on, Jalisa Evans. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm honored that you decided to come on and talk to us. We ran into each other at South by Southwest by way of Margot.
Mhm.
Shout out to you, Margot,
Shout
when
out
you
to
hear this
Margot.
episode. Shout out to Margot. And so we connected on, we have some other things cooking in the background that I will talk to you folks about sometime down the road. But
Yeah.
she's here to tell her exit interview story, and we're excited and appreciative to have her on. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, what made you decide to go into education? What's that journey like for you?
So my journey was not your typical education journey. So I didn't go or grow up wanting to be a teacher. I actually wanted to be a doctor. Um, I went to North Carolina A&T State University, the best HBCU there is. Um, and I started to explore, and my major was psychology with a minor in pre-med. And I started to explore my field, and it was my going into my senior year where I got to this place where I no longer wanted to go to medical school. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to kind of go into a graduate program, but I needed space to really think. I had went through a lot during my junior year, and I just wanted to explore more. And so I applied to Teach for America. I actually applied the last interview round and wasn't even sure that I was going to get it. But I remember doing my teacher lesson where I was being recorded, and I was like, oh, I could really be a teacher. And I immediately really wanted the opportunity. And so I was placed in Charlotte, North Carolina, which was my number two choice, right down the road from where I went to school. And I immediately fell in love with teaching, fell in love with my students, and like it was like something that I always wanted to do. It was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. My family was like, wow, you went from wanting to be a doctor to like now wanting to be a teacher full time. It's like, yes, this is my calling. I'm grateful for stumbling on this opportunity, and this is it for me. So I didn't have a why then, but I will say my why of why I just fell in love with it so fast was immediately the students. Like I was 21, teaching seventh grade middle school science. Like,
No, let's just pause. Everybody who listens to this show knows how I feel about seventh graders. Oh, bless you, sweetie.
yeah,
Bless you. Yes, go ahead.
it was a party in my classroom, like literally, and it wasn't like a party where Miss Johnson at the time didn't do anything. It was like hardcore learning, but those babies were falling in love with science because I had a true love of science. I mean,
Yeah.
and I was crazy too. Like I was teaching on top of the tables.
Oh, that was me. That was me. Yes.
Yeah, like, and so I really captured their attention, and it was really the students. That was my why.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask you, so first of all, we've had quite a few folks that have come on who took the TFA journey and same, like in medical at their school, and then changed their mind like towards the end of their undergrad. So shout out to Brittany Dawson, whose episode dropped in April, late April, who was also in TFA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's quite a few the people who have a journey of I want to do this thing, and now I was deciding to be an educator. I want to talk a little bit about this, like what your family said, because the same thing I was asking lots of people who were in medical and then moved over. What was that like for you to let them know like, I'm no longer deciding to go into this field? I want to go into teaching. What was their reaction?
I think so. The good reactions that I got, my dad and my grandmother were like fully in support. They thought I was crazy, but they were in full support. My grandmother was very much like, man, we would have had one doctor in our family that like was really looking
Mm.
forward to that.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
she used to hear me when I came home from school and just heard my tone and just she's like, I'm glad you're happy. Um, and my mother had to wrestle with the fact that like, man, you're not gonna really be getting paid much money. Like, do you understand that this is this is gonna be a struggle for you, like going into this profession? I was like, yeah, like I'm happy and you can't pay for that. Like you can't
Yeah.
pay for the love those babies loved on me and how I loved on them. So they were
Yeah,
supportive.
I love that. That's good because I know that some folks have talked about this idea of the family pressure to like this was a bragging thing. My child was going into the
Yeah.
medical field and now they're going to only be a teacher,
Mhm.
and so they had to grapple with being very happy for their own decision to be go into education and then realizing that their families had different dreams for them
Yeah.
and deciding to push on and do what they wanted to do anyway. So that's why I had to ask that question. So tell us about like how long you were teaching, how long you were in education.
Mhm.
What was that like for you?
So I taught for a total of 3 years in both Charlotte, North Carolina, and in LA. My experience in Charlotte, so I'm telling you, I first entered the classroom. We were on this ultimate high, and I started to notice about 4 months in that I had a large group of Black and Brown boys who were not reading on grade level. And coming from a HBCU, coming from like the mecca of Black excellence, I could not wrap my mind around how they were not reading on grade level in seventh grade, like literally at the first grade level. It just didn't make sense to me. And they were not students who didn't want to learn, they were infatuated with learning. And so I sought help. I was like, hey, I have a group of kids who are not reading on grade level, but they want to access my curriculum. And how can I support them in that? So I went to the English teacher for our grade level. And instead, she pulled up my roster and was like, well, you're going to have a problem with this person, this person, this person, this person. You should place them here, place them here. Mind you, I did not come because I was having classroom management issues. That was the least of my problems in my classroom. Um, so I was like, okay, she didn't answer my question. So let me go to the admin because maybe we can start a program. And the administrator was just like, it's not much that we can do. They've been behind. You see, they've been behind since first grade, right? So there's not much we can do, but we can provide some support. Maybe you should try to chunk their reading. She gave me some strategies to like assist them, but there was nothing to like fully address when they will be on grade level. Like, what is our plan? Um, and the crazy thing about it, this district was their Northern Star was literacy this year. Like it was, they said that they were going to focus on literacy. I'm like, not at my school. So
Mhm.
I got into this like real depressive state. Like I couldn't make sense of what my purpose was for in the classroom if I couldn't serve all my kids.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it was like, yeah, I got through the fall semester going into the springtime, and I got connected through Teach for America with the leadership and education equity side of Teach for America, Lee, and got matched with someone who is my mentor till this day, Charlene Mack, who was organizing across Charlotte. And she's like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, I just told you, I talked to all of these people
Right, pay
and
attention.
they don't have any solution for me. So what are you gonna do to help me? And so come to find out, at the time, I started to just like really focus in what was going on in my district politics wise. And there was a big fight on neighborhood schools versus like going out, being bused outside of your school. School board meetings were like super divisive. Folks were either in green shirts or orange shirts, and for
Mm,
neighborhood schools and not for neighborhood schools. And so I remember
mm.
growing up with Charlene, and was like, man, but this is not the conversation that's happening in my school. And this is crazy. This has happened at the school board level. And so I joined her on a campaign to really listen intentionally with families and students and educators in the midst of this divisive time that was happening in our district. And what there was an agreement across each sector that I just named, students, educators, and families. And they were like, we need better schools. Like, I don't mind sending my child to the neighborhood school, but my neighborhood school conditions are worse than my school, and I'm living in government housing. Why? And I started to think and like be hyper vigilant of my school. Like, man, my students sometimes have brown water coming from the water fountains. Sometimes we don't have like proper air conditioning in our schools. And so we basically organized across the city of Charlotte, and we forced the county commissioner to allocate $132 million through a bond to a certain set of schools that had like 60 years of deferred maintenance. It was crazy.
Wow. Wow, wow.
And in that
When
moment,
that's the time, and that's the 60 years of deferred maintenance. Typically, schools are torn down
yes,
after 60 years. We're
yes,
not starting to talk about revamping air conditioning systems.
yes.
So that says a lot about what you all were dealing with.
Yes. So I share that to say, like, when you asked how long I was teaching, in the midst of that, like, first year, I learned that everything outside of my classroom is what had more power than me in my own classroom. And so I got really keen. I even call myself like this teacher organizer of like, I am organizing at night and teaching by day. That was like my thing, especially after that campaign. I was like, this is the work that I want to continue and constantly do. And
Mhm.
so I finished up my 2-year commitment in Charlotte, North Carolina. And at the time, I was like, man, I really want to see what it would look like for me to be on this journey of having my own school to where I can have some sense of power that connects both community and what my students really need. And
Let me
so,
pause you for a
yeah,
second. Wait a minute. That you about 22 in this story. At this point, I'm
yes,
following along.
yes, I'm 22.
You a newborn.
Very much so, very much so.
Yes. So by the time you turn 22, we already organized and got some money for our schools.
Hmm.
We're doing a thing. So we're busy.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
busy. Okay. I just want to track this for my folks who are listening at home. We think that we have to wait till we're older or
Mm,
whatever our situation is, or we have to do certain things when we're done teaching. And this conversation is really teaching me, teaching all of us, I hope, that you don't have to wait to make changes in your school districts, in your
mm,
systems. You don't have to leave. You can start doing that work wherever you are and however you need to do that. But
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So 22, turning 23-year-old Jalisa moves to LA, because I was told both if I wanted to be a school leader, I was getting connected to, um, I'm going to leave the networks out because this network gets flack all the time. And then the story that I'm telling you, going to share why I'm leaving, I'm just not going to mention that network's name, but I knew this was a network where I could become a school leader fast, and I could also be able to be active in my community. And I was also going to be in a community that was South Central, right? This is
Mhm.
historic South Central Los Angeles, where it has always been known for having a Black presence. So I was really excited about that. And my students on the corner of King and Weston were building tsunami sensors. Like, I had another group of kids that were on fire about science, on fire about learning. And we're in LA, so they also acted at night. Okay, so it was a good group of kids. Um, and I remember getting really frustrated of talking to my parents and families and learning their plight to get to school. A lot of them drove far, like 2 hours, had to wake up at like 5 a.m. just to get to school so that they could have a better option and bypass LA traffic. Um,
Mm.
I had some students who were living with other family members so that they could get to school on time, and be have an opportunity to go to a good school. And I'm thinking to myself, this school isn't even all that. Like, this isn't like a private school, creme de la creme. You know, our data was very average at the time. We were like 22% proficient in math. And I couldn't remember the reading score at this time, but I remember sitting in a PD and we were looking at the data. And when the 22% proficient in math came up on the board, our school leader danced, like excited,
Mm.
happy. And she was like, y'all don't understand. Next door, which was a public school in LAUSD, was at 4% proficient in math. And I was just like, what in the world? Like, one, this is why the families are probably doing this hop, skip, drive to get their kids to a school that's only 22% proficient. And that criminalized our students, right? I often would have to like step in on behalf of my students to make sure that, one, they weren't being criminalized, but also that they weren't being targeted within the school as like something that is a minor behavior that didn't follow them. I will never forget talking to a student who was acting up. I was on my planning period, was kind of acting up, kind of getting frustrated, was really emotional, y'all. It's like seventh grade. They were just emotional.
Right. Right.
And I was like, you're smart. You make good grades. You just have to be able to find the time to take to address the feelings that you're feeling in a way that doesn't disrupt the classroom. And the school leader walks by and was like, I don't even know why you're wasting your time, Miss Johnson.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why am I here? Why am I here?
Yeah. Can I just pause
Yeah,
you for a second? So, because you're saying a lot right now in this small amount of time,
yeah,
and I'm at this 4%. I'm at this 20-something% proficiency, and I know that folks who are listening to this podcast are going to say that's terrible.
yeah,
But I also want people to think about their own school districts
yeah.
proficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just read from the Black Parent Network here in Colorado
Mm,
that 25% of Black boys in Denver public schools have a proficient in math, are proficient in math.
yeah.
And so 25, 1 in 4. And so we do that drive. I was a kid who took the public
Mm-hmm.
bus at 6th grade across town to an okay, decent school,
Mm,
and to another school in 7th grade, another school in 8th grade, chasing a good education,
yeah.
right? And I know that there are so many families who will drive, put their child on a bus, have them live with someone else, like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
just for that 2% difference, that 10% difference.
Yeah.
And so that's super, super tough. But yeah, I'm loving that there's this like through line of like, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is going to definitely come into like, what are you doing now conversation.
Yeah.
But the things that we're saying to our students, or they're overhearing us say, is just so powerful. I remember listening to Michelle Obama's book, and she talked about her counselor saying,
Mm-hmm.
like, you need to be going to something more community college like, or whatever I can't remember exact terms. And I used to think, who is saying, like, this is not, there can't be adults talking to children like that.
Yeah.
But the more and more I hear these stories, the more and more I'm convinced that adults and that are supposed to be protecting our children are harming, and we know this is common knowledge,
Yeah.
but harming them very blatantly,
Mm-hmm.
like just saying things out of their mouths and thinking this is a throwaway kid or blah 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 blah, and that's just beyond unfortunate. It's
Yeah.
criminal,
It's
right?
criminal.
But
It's very criminal. And I think there's a when we think about the politics and the system that's working against our students, this particular system, our school was a refurbished old apartment complex. So if you know anything about LA and apartments, like my classroom was really like a studio apartment, right? And you can see it because you land and buildings and space is hard to come by. And so this school refurbished that to be a school, but it still was very old, right? And so when you looked at this particular network of schools, and their schools that they had in South Central Los Angeles looked a certain type of way in comparison to the the mega buildings that they had in East Los Angeles, right? And it was a telling sign that Black students, when we talk about people of color, that Black students didn't matter. And our students sometimes would like do activities at those other schools or would hear about it, and they're moving all across the city to go to this school where it just didn't look welcoming for me.
Mhm.
When I pulled
Mhm.
up to the school as early as I did, I was like, why am I here? And I slowly saw my love for teaching dwindle because I felt like because I was that teacher that was standing in the gap for my students, I was being targeted. I was being seen a certain type of way. And the professional development that I was promised and eager that made me move across the country to get, I just wasn't getting. Um, and so that's why I left.
Yeah. 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 That promise of professional development, you said moved across the country,
Yeah.
literally, to get you did not receive.
Mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
And so many of us. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna like underscore my full hopes of being a school leader. Like I wanted that for myself.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting when you talk about professional developments and being promised things. So many of us get promised to get in the door,
Hmm.
right? And we get excited and we're trying to make changes. And when we realize, some of us, that we're not going to get that PD that we were promised, then we go and start making our own PDs and burning ourselves out,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like, that's okay. I'm going to do it myself. And that can go on for a little bit, but after a while, like, where is the end to that?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything you're saying is making sense. And for those folks who are in LA, I'm sure that you can 100% like visualize what Jaleesa's talking about. Now, my next question is, we understood why you left, and we'll talk about, like I said before, what you're doing now. But my next question is, just thinking about the folks that you left on the East Coast and the West Coast, and this conversation that we're having about Black educator retention,
Mm-hmm.
what are some ideas that you may have for school districts, for TFA, for
Yeah,
unions that they can do to keep the Black educators that they have already in schools
yeah.
or in administrative offices? What are you thinking?
The top of mind is being bold about learning about anti-blackness and being committed to eradicating it in their school. Um, it is so when I think about my experience, both East and West, I needed a connection to community, which is innate for Black folks, right? Like we are collective, we are communal. And when we think about what our schools were before Brown versus Board, they were communities, right? They were my dad's teacher. He was he was like barely kindergarten age and sat in a first grade class because the teacher that lived in his community said, "You're going to come with me, right? You're going to be a part of school with me every day." He would be dressed and ready, and she would, on her way to school, stop and get him. And so when we think about the unintentional consequences of Brown versus Board, I think there's something for systems to start to dig into of how do we repair that harm? Like how do we start to look at how Black students were operating and receiving their education prior to integration, and what pieces of that still need to exist in our schools today for both Black educators and Black students. Um, and I think for Black educators, we care deeply about Black students. And so if the data is constantly telling us that Black students are the lowest on the totem pole, are the lowest performing, and the data is, they're not seeing the rise in the data, and they're being told all of these tricks to get data to rise for them, and they're not seeing that increase for Black students. I think that that also contributes to the burnout for Black educators. It's like, where do I see, or how am I going to change that for folks who look like me?
Mhm.
So I think that districts have to be super critical of that, unapologetically, just be bold and really forcing, if you care about seeing Black student achievement and if you care about seeing Black educator retention. For unions, I think our unions have to learn the experience of Black educators, and know that the stories that they're telling of being targeted and that they're in toxic environments is not that they're just angry, and that they should be taken as any type of complaint that a teacher would give to the union, and that they should investigate them deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of things. One,
Yeah.
just starting from the union piece, I 100% can relate to that. I've shared my story on my own exit interview on our podcast. And the thing that I talked about in that episode was when I was experiencing racism from my administrator, and I went to my union and told them that the union, my direct union person was Black woman. Yes, she
Mm,
believed it, no problem. But when we had to elevate it, I was talking to a white man.
mm,
And I saw his face shift when I said I'm experiencing racism. It was very visible.
mm,
And so from that point, I knew this person could never defend me in front of my white female administrator
yeah.
because he doesn't believe racism is a thing.
Mm,
And so I'm left out here to figure out how to support myself or gather my community to support me
yeah.
because even though I paid into the union was not there for me.
Mm, mm,
Right. So, yes, I 100,000% agree with that. And so this makes me think about, as much as I love unions for lots of things, if
yeah.
unions aren't able to support Black educators and believe our stories, then why are they in existence? Especially because we had Black unions before Brown versus Board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were dissolved because of NEA and
Mm-hmm.
other national organizations. Um, because they were there to support us.
Yep.
The second thing I want you to really I want to go back to is you specifically use the term anti-Blackness
Mm-hmm.
and not just racism.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think we, one, where we are as a country, as a world, we are so used to hearing anti-racism. We're so used to hearing DEI, um, and DI is now the new N word. It's like this evolution, right? We're so comfortable in hearing that. But the truth is, even once we may have a DEI in our school, we may have some commitment that is seen. We may have in LAUSD, there's a anti-racist micro credential, right? Like, yeah, teachers, school leaders, system leaders can go and get a micro credential in anti-racism. But we are still experiencing racism for Black folks just being Black, right? For Black folks just being themselves. Um, for Black women standing strong and communicating, not being hostile, but then being deemed hostile. That's anti-Black. And so there, while we've made this commitment around being anti-racist, we have not made a commitment in being anti-Black.
Yeah, I'm glad you cleared that up. And I think anti-Blackness says this we're against Black people,
Mm-hmm.
non-Black folks, right? So it's not just white people, it's our brown folks, our indigenous folks.
Yep.
And we're experiencing this, right? Not just from white educators,
Mm-hmm.
from white families. It is coming from all sides.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you said that. The anti racism micro credential is wild because this idea of I took this micro credential class and now I have the stamp to
Mm-hmm.
say that is to me, the most dangerous thing that I've heard about in a while as far as trying to move the needle, in racism in schools. What kind of damage? It's just like when folks say, "Well, I have a black friend," and they said it was okay to do blah.
Yep.
This is like the black friend credential.
It's literally
the
the
black,
best
fr-
friend credential.
yeah, the black friend credential. Yes, that's wild to me.
Yeah. Or I have a DEI person, so we're good.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay, all right. So lots to share here. I really appreciate this. Jalisa's doing dope work out here, and she's shared so much. We just got finished talking about the anti-racism micro credential, which is a black friend card. And her organizing, even in her being a first year teacher, second year teacher, and seeing a lot of issues of anti-blackness, some huge literacy gaps in her black boys when she was teaching. And so now we're talking about the second part about what she's doing now and all the other things. And we're going to start out with the first question, which is, well, tell us, who's a black teacher that you would like to shout out that's either teaching now, who taught you, anyone you can think of?
I have a laundry list. So let's
Go for it. Go for it.
So my first black educator was in seventh grade, and it was Miss Lassiter, and she didn't play. Miss Lassiter held me to high expectations, and she was a stern black woman, and I appreciated Miss Lassiter. She taught seventh grade English, and I was reading books that I had never been introduced to before. Um, Unfortunately, that was my first and only Black educator through K through 12, which I think is um, really profound when you look at the high school that I went to um, in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is Bayside High School. While there were Black educators there, I was a part of the Health and Sciences Academy because y'all know I wanted to be a doctor. And so but through that medical program, there were no Black teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get that opportunity. My next, going to a HBCU, that's, so I had all Black educators. One that stood out to me and really, I think, shaped me, one by introducing me to bell hooks, but is
Yes.
is Dr. Cornet. Like, uh, not only did she introduce me to bell hooks and Black feminism, she also was the first time where I got to apply my science skill to really studying and getting deeper around racism. So my junior year at A&T, I was able to like survey what biases look like, and do deep research, and actually presented my research at UNC Chapel Hill. So I appreciate Dr. Cornet for like sending me on this journey. And then the rest of the Black educators, one, the Black educators that I currently still work with, um, one Black educator, Miss Jameson, who I got introduced during my second year teaching in Charlotte. She came in, and y'all have to understand, I was 22 and was really feeling myself because my first year, I won New Teacher of the Year award. I was popping, like I felt like I had it in the bag. And Miss Jameson was like, "Oh, there's so much more you could be doing." And I will never
Mm.
forget how, like, I was coming home to my boyfriend at the time, now husband, like, "Man, this woman gets on my nerves. Like, she doesn't realize that I already got it. Like, I don't need your help, Miss Jamerson." Um, but she introduced me to so many tactics that took my classroom to another level. And she helped me realize what it meant to really be serious about my students' data, and how if I was really passionate about seeing them grow, the work that happens. Um, yeah, I was like coasting by with just bare enough before Miss Jameson came into my life. So very much shout out to Miss Jameson. And then the list: Melissa Ali, Crystal Goff, Melissa Mack, Felicia Lewis, Ebony Mackey, um, Lisa Ross. These teachers are current Black educators who are on our team of the Black Educator Advocates Network and are on the front lines of doing the work of seeing the policy and the practices change for Black educators. And so I share them and I bring their spirit into this today because a lot of them are being targeted, right? A lot of them are resisting to their experiences that they're navigating. So, got to shed light on them too.
Yeah, I love that. And shout out to Miss Jameson, because yeah, like I had one of those. I had one that's like, this is all great. Good
Mm-hmm,
for your ego. And let's pull out this data. So I totally understand that, especially, getting that you said teacher of the year and all these things.
mm-hmm,
And already I also had a classroom where discipline wasn't an issue. We did what they
mm-hmm,
had to do, but we needed those folks to say like, you could do better, you could do better, you could do better.
mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. And so you already alluded to this, so let's get down to it. You're no longer in traditional education spaces. What are you doing? Tell us all the things that you're up to now.
Yeah. So in 2019, I had the opportunity to found what was an initiative called the Black Educator Advocates Network, which is now a full blown 501c3. Um, this organization is based in LA, and we are on a mission to build power alongside Black educators. To transform the practices and policies that are pushing Black educators out of the classroom. When we look at California, California is on fire, first of all, when it comes to the issue around um, getting Black educators into our classrooms, but also retaining our Black educators. I think the latest data that we have is from 2018 that says Black educators make up about 5% across the state, um, and it's a stark difference, and it's filled, right. A lot of Black educators are the only one in their schools, and so we sit on the side of like, this is not a recruitment issue all the way. Like, yes, we need to have a focused recruitment strategy, but we also need to think about why Black educators are leaving, um, and we have a base of Black educators who are organizing based off of their experiences. Some have were pushed out of the classroom, and some still exist in the classroom and are speaking to their experiences that they have every day to influence policy change both at the local level and across the state of California. We also got into this space because earlier this year we put out a report where we surveyed 128 Black educators across the state of California. And we learned that, yes, some of them are the only one, and majority of them in the open comment section described anti-Blackness experiences, whether it was toxic work environments, not feeling valued by leadership, but feeling like other races are being valued by leadership. Um, some Black educators were quoted like, people were thinking that we weren't educated enough, or I'm not educated enough to do the job. Being the angry Black woman, uh, the comments go on, and they were specifically naming anti-Blackness. And so we knew that policy change and organizing is a long-term thing and is a long-term commitment, but we also wanted to be committed to working with system leaders to coach them on what does it mean to retain Black educators, but with a foundation on eradicating anti-Blackness. And so we took those open comments, we took those experiences, and we created this framework of 5 tenets that we call the guiding tenets to retaining Black educators. And so, yeah, that's Beam. It is,
Wait, don't leave us without the framework.
yeah, oh
Don't just leave us hanging. Wait,
yeah.
hold on. Go back. Go back. What's the Tell us about this framework, please.
So so first thing about the framework is that We Being did not just create this framework by ourselves. In true organizing fashion, we created it alongside Black educators, but we convened them. So we convened school psychologists that were Black school leaders, Black educators. We even had some like C-suite folks that were in LAUSD school district, and we convened them for 5 months, and we essentially freedom dreamed of like, what would it look like for you to feel like you were at a school that values you and will make you want to stay, and the experience that either you experienced or you observed. So these are folks who have like 20 years or more in the field, who've seen a lot, specifically in LA, and then also some folks from San Diego. And so we stumbled on 5 guiding tenets. One is eradicating anti-Blackness. That has to be at the core if you really want to retain Black educators. Reconstructing time, educator autonomy, connection to community, and communal care. And so, like I shared earlier, when we really got to what we needed, we imagined and freedom dreamed of the things that we had prior to Brown versus Board that really created this holistic education experience for both Black educators and Black students. I always find it ironic how I come into a space and I'm like, this is about Black educators, and within 10 minutes, they're talking about Black students. They cannot have the conversation without Black students.
100% yes. 100% yes. Black educators will be having the conversation amongst each other and then start talking about students.
Hmm.
And for the work we do with the Black Educator Wellness Cohort here in Colorado, we have to keep bringing them back to self,
Yes.
right? And their wellness and their wholeness. And that's really interesting because that's what the default is. They've been doing
Hmm.
that for so many years of focusing on the student that they're burning up or burnt up already.
Yep.
So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Hmm. So when we created the framework, we were like, okay, these are the solutions that will keep us there, keep Black educators in the space, but ultimately to see Black student achievement. For communal care and a connection to community, they really talked about like, man, how can we go beyond just our classrooms to be able to meet with our students and meet students where they are and meet their families where they are. How can we as as a school be invested in folks' care, like what you do, Dr. Lyons? Like, how can schools be invested in Black educators' wellness? It's like that
Mhm.
has to happen, and then also have to be invested in our community's wellness as well.
Mhm. And this conversation of how our schools and districts going to focus on the care of Black educators, we could have a whole conversation about that
Yeah.
because I think that they would have to care first.
Hmm.
And I was speaking to a woman, a professor at CU Boulder, and she was saying like economically, it's cheaper to just get new teachers all the time. And so like why would they want to keep Black teachers? Why would that matter when they can get a cheaper whatever, a first year versus a seasoned, even third year at this point, or fifth year or 20th year? Why would we keep Black educators? But yeah, the idea of a school district administrators, principals, superintendents caring about the wellness and well-being of Black educators, especially those who are not Black themselves, is hard to imagine. I don't want to like, I know again we can have a whole conversation about this, but like
Yeah.
how did you all grapple or how are you grappling with this idea of like currently I don't see that happening. I don't know if you do, but what's that conversation looking like when you talk about school districts and schools caring about Black educator wellness?
Yeah, I think the conversation where we're at is if we connect where Black student data is, right? And I mean, I'm still young. I'm not 22 anymore, but I've been here in the game for 10 years now, and I feel like I've seen everything thrown at the window to address Black student achievement. In LAUSD, we actually you like defunded school police and put that pot of money, which is like 20 million, into Black student achievement, right? So not only have we done every tactic, we've also addressed it with money. And I think it's time for our districts to wrestle with the fact that if we're not being intentional about caring for our Black students, then we're never going to see that change. And in order to care for Black students, you have to also realize that they need a Black educator. And so I think that's how we approach the conversation. Is like, if you say you want to do this work, like LAUSD is like, hey, we're committed to Black educators. They actually have a resolution. They're bounded by it. And every practice that they're sharing with us of like this is what they're doing is all recruitment. And so we're having a conversation of like recruitment is not enough. And we need to talk about retention, and this is how we retain. Um, some folks are like, man, this is radical. Y'all are talking about anti-Blackness. And I remember at some point saying or making a commitment to be anti-racist was radical. And so I still
Yes.
believe and
Mhm.
hope that folks start to adopt language, and as quickly. And even in these times, folks are probably like, what are you talking about, Jalisa? Even right now, where our language is being weaponized against us, we have to continue to talk about how anti Blackness impacts Black students and Black educators. And the day that we are comfortable with stopping that conversation, that means we don't believe that Black students will ever achieve in our schools. And we need to be having a whole nother conversation. And I still believe that they don't have to have the lowest data. And so I'm consistently continuing the conversation around what are we going to do to address anti Blackness?
I absolutely love that strategy. I absolutely love that strategy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's brilliant, and it makes so much sense. We need folks to believe that they and the proof will show.
Yes.
If you care about Black students, then this is what you need to do next. And whatever that result is our answer to do we really care about Black students?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love, love, love that. Folks, if you're listening to this episode, you see we got the most fierest guests. And fierce is not a word, but I made it a word to say. I mean, take some notes, reach out. Okay, tell our audience if they're in LA, if they're not in LA, how can they support you? Anything that's happening that they should know about, how they can contact you, all the things.
Yeah, I would say either visit our website at blackeducatorsadvocate.org. Our social media is the same. We're on IG and Facebook. I struggle with X/Twitter, so we're on IG and Facebook. Black Educators Advocate, and reach out if you are in a state where they're not having a conversation about anti-Blackness and you want to see how we can train or do workshop or just like observe us, reach out. We're open to being and supporting you all. I will say that uh, LA and California is like, everyone calls it a progressive state. That could be argued. But the things that you all are hearing me talk about of like what has been tried in LAUSD, this anti-racist micro credential, I think there's some hope that if we can get this district talking about anti-Blackness, then we should be able to replicate that into other districts across the nation, because it is the second largest school district. So join us and have a conversation. I'm open to chatting with folks to go deeper and what this looks like for their schools.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last question.
Okay.
What's been bringing you joy these days?
Okay. So I have an almost 2-year old. She'll be 2 in August. And what's really bringing me joy these days is her obsession with The Princess and the Frog. She loves Princess Tiana. She can sing Almost There like it's nobody's business.
Oh yeah.
So that brings me joy of hearing her sing those songs. And Almost There is a hit. Like it when you really listen to the lyrics, I'm like, man, yes, we are almost there. So I get joy hearing my 2-year old sing Almost There.
Well, folks, that's it. Um Again, we have work to do. If you're no longer in education in the traditional sense, obviously there's a place for you.
Mhm.
And you've heard that on the podcast today. So make sure that you take a look at our show notes for more information and links to get in contact. And I hope to see you all on the next episode. Peace.